And we live. Hello and welcome everyone. It's time for another exciting episode of IT Career in Australia channel. And tonight's topic is navigating the CIO career paths, steps and challenges. Thank you so much for finding some time this evening to join me. Please, as usual, don't forget to introduce yourselves in the comments. Let us know what you do and join our conversations with your questions and comments. Or at least say hi in the comments, because if you're not saying hi, we don't know that you're here. So please be nice and say hi. I'm Jana Martins, if you forgot. So I'm passionate about learning more about the present and future of IT industry, and always eager to share my latest findings with you on this channel. So again, tonight the topic is navigating the CIO career path, steps and challenges. And David is going to share his experience, obviously steps and challenges, how to overcome those challenges, and what skills you need to focus to be a successful in CIO career. So before I'll pass it over to David to introduce himself, just want to quickly remind you the usual things that we're streaming on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. If you missed the stream, you can catch the replay by subscribing to my YouTube channel, IT Career in Australia. I'll go live there every Wednesday night at 5:30 p.m. Melbourne time, and we talk about different things, about job search, in and out of IT industry Australia, career transitions, and career progressions. So, and also make sure to join my meetup group to receive invites to face-to-face events. So we're doing some next face-to-face event in February, so make sure to be part of my meetup group to join it. So, and as usual, I encourage you to ask as many questions as you like, but please stay on the topic. I think that's enough of me. So I'm just gonna pass it on to David to introduce himself. Please, David.
Hi, everyone. I'm David Cooper. I'm the Chief Information Officer of a company called Ligeti Partners. I've been a CIO for about 7 years now, and I guess, one of the things I do need to let everyone know, I've just finished having COVID, so I've got a little bit of brain fog, but, hopefully this can be as interactive as possible. And you may find me pause every now and then, but that's just to collect my thoughts.
That's great, because I don't mind pausing sometimes as well, just to collect my thoughts. Anyway, doesn't matter if I had COVID or not. So we're on the same page. We're on the same page today, David. I guess let's just start with our conversation with usual question. My usual question always first question to my speakers is, why are you talking about this topic today? And the answer could be just because I ask you to, but maybe it's something that you're personally passionate about as well and would like to share.
Yeah, I guess one of the reasons is you did ask me to do this, but I think the other thing is it's about igniting passion in people and understanding what a CIO role does. And my career path has been very different than other of my peers. I don't have a technology degree. I have come back from, I'm actually I've got a Bachelor of Education, and I accidentally fell into a technologist role. And, my story is extremely, very different from other people, because I look at technology in a very different world and very different eyes, in that, I'm aligned to the business. And I think that's what I want to try and get across, that a successful CIO not only needs to understand technology, but they need to understand the business as well. And, if I look at my background, I started off as a basic programmer. Someone put a book on my desk and said, learn how to program. And that's where I started my career.
And I guess that's my, second question is pretty much, I would love you to share your story. You already mentioned that you have maybe some kind of non-typical career path to CIO level. So yeah, if you can just share a little bit more with us in terms of what sort of steps you take to get to this position.
Yeah, so I guess, my career started off as an accounts payable clerk working for a security company. I'd done 5 years at university. I was about to do my last final exams to graduate, and I decided teaching wasn't for me. So I left my degree, I left university and needed a job, and I started off as an accounts payable clerk, learning how to do accounting. And that company at that time said, we want to build a network. I knew nothing about it. And so I went out to a bookstore and brought Networking for Dummies, and I built a network for this organization. And I networked 7 PCs together. We were running, and depending on the age of people here, I was running Novell 3.11, and I learned how to do everything from books. I've always had a photographic memory, so I could flick through the manuals and try and understand what I needed to do. But tech really became it came naturally to me. So I went from there to a IT development job where I learned how to develop in an ERP. It was in a very old language that a lot of people don't know anymore. I've been called a dinosaur. It's a language called PIC or Universe. And that opened up my career because I could then go off and develop software for other organizations. PIC in my era was a well-known database, but as time progressed, I got bored with programming, and every opportunity I had, I looked for what I could do next that would align me to the business. And so, I've gone from working at companies like Harley Davidson and Ducati as a programmer to working on help desk at an organization called Cuscal, which is in charge of all the credit unions of Australia, to looking after their Visa credit card system. I then went to and worked for a company called Cellarmaster Wines, which I became a business analyst. They were purchased by Foster's Group, which then sent me down to Melbourne, which is where I've started my real IT career. And I looked after all the financial systems of Foster's. Accounting came naturally to me, and the business saw the potential in what I could do. So I not only started off as a business analyst, I became a project manager implementing a brand new ERP, to really driving, then looking after all of our financial systems and integrating them all at once. I was at Foster's for 8 or 9 years and decided I want to try something different. And I think I started off at a tiny little not-for-profit as their national IT manager. That was my first real foray into owning everything. And, I was there for 2 years, learned a lot, built some great relationships. And what I then went into was working into superannuation, which was implementing SAP in Australia for a superannuation company. And because it was number driven and number based, I picked up superannuation very quickly and, worked in superannuation for quite a few years, and then got tapped on the shoulder and worked in performing arts, where I was the head of IT for the Australian Ballet. And now I'm the CIO at Ligeti Partners.
So it feels like you work in a few completely unrelated industries as well.
Yep.
And I would be really curious. Firstly, I think I would be really curious to know, do you think, is there a typical career path for CIO role? Do you think there's some sort of typical path exist?
I look, to be honest, I don't think there is. I think there is a path, but I don't think it's typical. I think what I've been able to show through my career is that I've understood the business, and that I can solve business problems from understanding what the business is trying to achieve, but also leveraging my knowledge of other industries. I think the diversity in my industry portfolio really drives the ability to have different conversations with the leadership teams. I think it's not just about technology. You can be the best technologist out there, but you also need to be able to communicate to the business. And I think one of my stronger skills may not be today, with COVID really affecting my brain, but I think one of my skills is I can actually understand what the business needs and then envision it and then deliver on it. I think there are so many now career paths. There's not only a CIO, there's a CTO, there's a CISO, so there are multiple levels of leadership or executive roles, but there are other organizations that don't have a focus on executive, but really that IT leadership. And I think there's a line that, you can go through, but I don't think it's typical anymore. I look at the path I went down. I just got out of another meeting with another CIO, and he went a completely different path. He went to CTO because he was strong in development, but then realized that he understood business and went vertical, went horizontal and went over to the CIO role. I think it's about showcasing your leadership skills and also your ability to have business acumen.
And how you balance that sort of technical knowledge and leadership skills, because you still need to, stay up to date with technology, and even if you don't need to, do anything hands-on, you still need to understand that broad technical knowledge. How do you balance that, constantly working on your leadership skills, but also stay in touch with the technology?
Yeah, so I think the way I do it, and this works for me, is that I surround myself with technologists that complement me. I don't think anyone can ever say that they know everything that's going on in the world of technology. I think it's about building a leadership team that is complementary to you. I have in all my leadership meetings a section where we talk about things that are coming up, things that are new in technology. My one-on-ones with my leadership team are really important to understand, what's new in their space. The conversation at the moment is all about AI, right? AI. There is more to technology than just AI. I think one of the challenges we have with tech is that the speed at which it's getting delivered is exponential. If you go back 5 years or pre-COVID, ChatGPT wasn't really a thing, right? And I think now you've got ChatGPT, you've got Copilot, you've got all that new technology. The business is, when I talk to businesses, they're typically overwhelmed with the technology that's coming out. They're excited, but overwhelmed. And sometimes it is really about, complementing yourself with the right resources, working out what you need to keep focused on. So, I'm keeping an eye on AI, but I'm looking at it at a really high level. What's the potential for this organization, right? I'm not looking at how we'll deliver it, but what's the potential? And I think there's an ability that you need to be able to keep yourself at a certain level without, as a technologist, I do like to get into the detail every now and then, but I think it's about working out your balance for yourself, right? And allowing your leadership team or the team that sits underneath you to actually complement you, right? And you complement them. A CIO told me a long time ago, one of my mentors, was that IT isn't just IT. IT is part of the business. You shouldn't see yourself as separate. You should see yourself as part of that business. And, that's what I try to do. And I try to make sure that all the staff in my team are seen as part of the business, that a business person can go to one of my team members and talk about a problem they're having, and they can help them come up with a solution. When I started at the Australian Ballet, I sort of said that the team were sitting in a man cave. I brought them out of that, and they sat in the middle of the business, right? And the business interacted with them in a very different way than when I first started.
I'm really glad you mentioned the teams, like one of the first thing when you were answering this question, because last week we were talking with Renzo exactly about this, building high-performing leadership teams, and he was talking exactly about that piece of making sure that building that strong team around you that can complement the skills and make sure that everyone responsible for the particular area. But coming back to that the career path conversation, So you also mentioned, a lot of important skills and that, the people can concentrate on. I'm curious, how, was it any moment in your life that you decided, okay, so I want to be a CIO? Was there at some point, was that kind of like, I did programming, I did this, CIO, that's my career goal?
I think it was when I was at Foster's. I had a CIO that was extremely, what's the word I'm looking for? Extremely impressive. He could talk the business. He could interact with the business. The business respected him. I actually, and this is a little bit of, maybe envy. I actually wanted to be like him. And I think, I don't like playing in the big end of town. I don't want to be a CIO of an organization that's 10,000 people, right? I like playing in my end of town, which is that 100 and 200 to 500 people FTE count. That's the bit I play well in. I know what my limitations are. I don't want to be at that end of town, of the big end of town. There are more and more organizations now understanding how important technology is and elevating up what was originally seen as an IT manager, but putting them as part of the executive group. My current organization, they had an IT manager role. They've seen the importance of what technology can bring to the organization, and it's now a CIO role. And I think that's really important that, organizations are understanding technology is going to drive us forward. I don't know of a business that can now operate without any form of technology.
Yeah, every company now is IT company.
Like I look at, as I was talking to you a bit earlier, when I was working for Foster's, when I got home, I had to dial up the VPN using an old school modem, and I would get probably 5 emails overnight, right? Now I'm always switched on. And I think that's the value organizations are seeing in technology, not only about always being switched on and meeting demands of customers, but also thinking about how do we leverage all of this data we're capturing? How do we understand where we can utilize, get a competitive advantage, for example?
So I want to just go back to that, moment that you saw that, CIO and thought like, mm-hmm. Okay, I want to be like him. So when you decided that, I think, one of your career goals might be to get to that CIO role, you want to be similar to what your boss was doing. Mm-hmm. Have you started taking particular steps towards it straight away? Like, have you, I don't know, sit down and thought through, okay, so if I want to be in this level, that's sort of, I don't know, training I need to take. That's the skills I need to work on. What maybe it's the people I need to connect with. So what was your thinking, I guess, at that point?
So my thinking was, and look, the CIO and I got on really well. I literally had a conversation with him, right? What can I do? Where are my strengths? Where are my weaknesses? And I think that's really important that we understand what our weaknesses are. Everyone has weaknesses. I've been in quite a few interviews where people sort of say to me, I ask the challenge, what are your weaknesses? And they go, oh, I don't really have that many. Everyone has weaknesses. And I think it's about understanding, first of all, what the role entails. And, a CIO at a larger organization many years ago was very different to what a CIO is now. But I knew I didn't want to play at that big end of town after talking to him. I didn't want to be him. What I wanted to be was a version of me, a version of him, but that suited really me. And that style was, I wanted to be able to engage with all parts of the business. I wanted to, be able to experiment and do things. And so I really sat with him and sat down and what do I need to learn? And he gave me, and he was very upfront, right? He was like, okay, you need some 360-degree feedback. You need to do some technical training. You need to do some leadership training. And so I put myself on leadership training courses. I put myself on some technical training. And, I then took a chance and I quit Foster's and went and worked for a small not-for-profit as their national IT manager. And that was scary because I didn't even know how to support. I was looking at how do I support all their infrastructure. I picked it up really quickly, right? And that was what I think made sure that I was on the right path. It was that next position after I made that decision that, hey, I want to be a CIO, that I actually could prove that I could deliver on it.
Do you remember any, I guess, particular, I don't know, course or book or something that you read that you think really, or course you done, a book you read that you think really help you to, as well, progress in those skills?
Yeah. So
anything comes in mind?
Yeah. So I followed a thought leader, a leadership, a trainer. He did leadership training called John Maxwell. He's a pastor in the US, and I'm not very religious, but what he spoke about was leadership skills. And I think that for me was pivotal for me, actually learning how to interact with an executive, learning how to interact with CFOs, learning how to interact with and report to managing directors. It was about me also having additional leadership skills on how do I form a team? How do I get my team to work at the optimal level? That was my starting point. And he was essentially, and this is the day he used to deliver every quarter. I would get CDs from them delivered from the US, and I would listen to the CDs. That was my pivotal point, right? Once that started to click with me, I went, oh, okay. Being a CIO isn't just about technology, it's about leadership. And I started to really want to do this.
I'm glad you mentioned that moment. This moment comes up in a lot of conversations I'm having on this channel. And I remember when I was speaking with Lindsay about that moving to that management role in IT, he said that, moving to leadership role, it's not the career progression, it's a new career. It's like starting a new career. And we don't think about it that way, because we think, okay, so you went through some technical career growth, you get, I don't know, senior developer and like a lead developer, and then it feels like natural to go to leadership position, where in reality it could be completely different career choice.
And I'd agree with that. Like, it is completely different, right? So, as a technologist, you know how to do Active Directory, you know how to look after a server, you know how to do that. Looking after people is very different, and it requires training, right? Some people it comes naturally to, but I think every leader, even if it becomes naturally to you, still need to have that continual evolution of training. I continually have training on leadership. Every week I have a coach that helps me with leadership, with mindfulness, a whole range of things. It is like moving to a new career. I sort of say you're not on the tools anymore, and you're still trying to work out through how you apply technology, but you're also leading teams and you're also managing teams, and that becomes a very different value proposition than what we're learned from being a true technologist, like a developer or a system administrator.
And kind of building up on that, what do you think was your biggest challenge when you moved from Foster's Group to that non-for-profit organization? So kind of like your first more like a leadership position. What do you think was the biggest surprise, the biggest challenge that you had there?
I think the biggest challenge was actually that I had no budget. Working for a not-for-profit has its moments. It is, very driven for a purpose, and I align to purpose-driven organizations. But working for a not-for-profit, I suddenly realized I have no money. I've just come from a multi-billion-dollar organization and I had no money. So what it taught me was, how do I drive outcomes with no budget? And so what it forced me to do was find vendors that align to my purpose. So it actually gave me an opportunity to actually talk to some vendors and say, what do you have in this space? I'm a charity, not-for-profit. How can you help me? But it was the connections I built with those organizations. I still have those connections now. I talk to the same people I talked to 20 years ago, really trying to get that. I've established those networking relationships. And that was the biggest challenge I had, was lack of money. I always looked at it from my perspective that I could always pick up a book and understand how to solve a problem. And that's, I looked after Exchange when I was at this not-for-profit. I knew nothing about Microsoft Exchange. I learned it. I made sure it ran quickly. It ran fine, but it was that sudden shift of now I'm responsible for all of IT.
What do you think was, like, obviously after that you work in quite a few organizations. So like now, like looking back, what do you think, what are the most common mistakes the CIOs should avoid and learn from?
I think, I think probably the biggest mistake, and this is for me personally, I think it's okay to fail. I think as humans, we always want success. I was having lunch with a very good friend, and we were talking about the CIO role, and he's gone, and he said to me, sometimes it's okay to fail in your first CIO role, right? Or second role. It's about going on a journey. For me, the biggest pitfalls was, making sure that you had a very supportive executive group, making sure you have they understand the strategy and understand that. So, communication is really pivotal in making sure that you're successful. I think some of the pitfalls that I had that you could fall into is, make sure you set those expectations really early, right? If you don't set expectations, then it's very open and people don't know what you're trying to achieve. I think I came from a healthcare organization where, setting those expectations really early made sure people understood what I was delivering. When I started as my first CIO position, COVID had hit. And, I think getting used to that remote working and also understanding I'm now an executive in that CIO role, that expectation management is really pivotal to your success.
And I guess coming back to to your career, and you also mentioned you've been in this health organization, you've been in superannuation, you've been in the Australian Ballet and the Cascade Lake, such a range of different industry and domains. My question is, do you think it's better to keep stay in one industry and know the domain knowledge throughout, to grow in the career? Or it's completely fine to jump from industry to industry? And how important that domain knowledge, because obviously you're talking about concentrating on business and strategy. It seems sort of intuitive that if you're staying in the same industry, you know more about it and you know more about the strategy. What are your thoughts on that?
Interesting question. I think there's some industries where you need to have a lot more domain knowledge. So going into healthcare, I had no clinical experience. So, I'm looking after people, I'm looking after their clinical health. I think there are some domains that you need some grounding in. And yes, there are CIOs that are exceptional and will, move into a healthcare industry quite quickly. And I'm going to use healthcare as an example. But for me personally, I probably needed a more in-depth clinical experience before I should have made that decision about jumping into being a CIO. I think moving between industries has given me an advantage in that I can actually take solutions or understandings I've had in one industry and apply it to the next. A good example is superannuation and performing arts. In superannuation, we were looking at propensity or the success of what was the likelihood of a customer that was joining to contribute to their superannuation. So I was involved in that. I could then take that and apply that to performing arts, where we were selling tickets for a show. So I could look at it and go, what's the likelihood of that, of a new person purchasing a ticket, purchasing again? I think there's been some, if you really look at across the industry, I've been able to bring stuff from one industry to the next. Foster's, beer, wine, I've been able to bring that to superannuation. Superannuation, I've been able to take that to performing arts. Performing arts, I've been able to take that to the legal profession, legal industry. So really, I think it's given me an advantage. It also allows me to think outside the box. I think sometimes when you're stuck in an industry for a very long time, you just know that industry. And sometimes it's about shaking the tree, as my boss currently says, like, shake that tree, David, and see what falls out. I think it gives you the ability to experiment a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because staying in one industry could be beneficial, like knowing it inside out, but also you start following the same concepts and strategy that everyone's doing in the industry, and sometimes it's just hard to look at the strategy, look at the business from different perspective if you've been in the same industry for a long time and surrounded by the similar people. And it's every industry is a small industry. Once in the industry, you know everyone, so you kind of stuck in the same group of people as well.
And so I do think it varies industry, but I've been quite fortunate that I've been able to take my knowledge from one industry to the next.
Yeah. We have some questions from the audience. Dylan has 2 questions. Thank you, Yana, for this valuable content. Questions to David. Would you be open for mentoring, and how does you maintain a work-life balance as CIO?
Very interesting question. So how do I let's go with maintain a work-life balance as a CIO. It is important that you look after yourself as well as the organization. IT doesn't stop, cybersecurity doesn't stop. There are threats 24/7. I wish cyber criminals would go to sleep while I was asleep, but that's not the world we live in. It is important you look after yourself. And so, I do 3 things as personally that works well for me. First of all, I'm learning how to do ballet. What that gives me is the moment to really just concentrate on movement and really concentrate on being able to perfect the form of my body. Now, I'm the silent elephant in the room, apparently. I'm not fit. But what I've learned from ballet is that it actually requires immense concentration. So what that allows me to do for that 1 hour is switch off. I do not think about work for that 1 hour. The second thing I'm doing is I'm learning how to DJ. And again, it's about leveraging my senses and taking that time out. So I'm using these 2 opportunities to block my mind from thinking from work. The third thing is really looking after my mental health, and that's by doing, I do mindfulness of a morning and of an evening, and I have a coach that helps me balance and, balance my thoughts to what I do. But it is really about looking after yourself, because if you don't look after yourself, how do you look after your team? And then how do you look after the business? So I think for me, it always starts with myself, and then it drives down. If I'm calm and collected, my team's calm and collected. And that's sort of how I balance up, looking after myself.
Great examples, David. I'm actually curious, because we've been mentioned, we touched on the mental health a few times with a few speakers. And some of them had the burnouts before they decided to look after themselves. There was that moment of, switching off and burning out. Then they decided, okay, so now I need to do something different. So do you think at some point of your career that you felt, okay, so I'm constantly on the go, I'm not switching on, so now it's time to look after myself? Did you hit that point of like, okay, so now it's time to be a bit more mindful?
Yeah, look, I think COVID has changed the world, right? and it's put a lot of focus on mental health. As I've gotten older, I've realized that I can't necessarily run as fast as I used to. So, to give you an example, I love working. Like, I give me a laptop and I will work on a laptop for as long as I want. But part of that comes mental exhaustion, right? When you're needing to think strategically and when you're trying to think quickly, you need to ensure that your mind is well rested. Not all good ideas come rushed. And so, looking after my mental health, it's really important that you recognize that sign of, hey, I'm getting into that time where I'm feeling like a little bit burnt out. And so I have my coach that helps me along, and she's my balancing act that, I talk to her every week. And I use that time to reflect on myself. My coach doesn't tell me, hey, David, I think you're doing too much work. It's actually me talking to my coach that actually says to myself, hey, David, time for you to calm down a little bit. And, it is about me then saying, well, okay, how do I solve this problem? I've been in an organization where I was literally burnt out. I've been working long hours. I just decided to quit. For me, it was about looking after myself. And as I said, if you don't look after yourself, how do you look after your team?
Like music to my ears, David. I'm a great supporter of the balance, and I've actually, all the examples that you're giving is really resonates with myself as well, but like actually with my view on the world. I surf a lot, so, and I think that surfing, that concentration when you just in the ocean and you can't think about anything else, you just need to make sure you you're surviving there. So
Yep.
I think that gives me a clear mind for a long time, because it just like hit the reset button, because you can't even think about, work or anything, because all your concentration is all what's going on, and if you're going to get dumped by the next wave or not.
Yep. And I think for me, part of me achieving my work-life balance is I actually work from the office 5 days a week. I don't like working from home. And that is because I can get addicted to my laptop, right? And so the ability for me to leave my house and walk to work and do have that transition time where I'm building a to-do list and then work and then come back, it allows me to have that natural flow, for me anyway, for that work-life balance.
Yeah. And it is got hard after COVID, with all this remote working, the expectations that everyone available at any time. And we sort of don't have that clear boundaries between work and the home anymore.
Yep.
But I think people recognizing it and start building those boundaries back and understand when it's time to actually switch down and relax as well.
Yep, I agree.
We need to get back to first part of Dylan's question. Would you be open to mentoring? And I guess to extend this question, what is your view on mentoring and finding the mentor to progress to CIO career as well?
Yeah, I think it is important that you have a mentor. I'm always open to having chats and conversations and see where those things go, right? I think it's about finding the mentor that's right for you. I have a coach. It took me a while to find the coach that works well for me, and she's been on your show. Natalie, she and I get on really well. I think for me, it is about finding the right mentor. It is important that you do, as a CIO, you do have that opportunity to talk to someone. And whether that's, I have weekly coaching sessions only because I really enjoy it. But you may have a monthly, but you need someone that is non-judgmental and is independent. And it is always good for an executive to have that coaching moment with someone. I find if you have a coaching moment with your boss, it's very hard. Whereas if you have someone that's really independent, then you can actually have a better coaching moment. But going back to the first part, am I open to mentoring? More than happy to have conversations and see where things go.
Yeah. Perfect. I want to come back to, you start mentioning about it in the beginning of the conversation. So that every organization now is IT, basically. Every company is a tech company this day, yeah? But there will be some companies that probably maybe not realizing the power of tech. But as you mentioned, you came to a company and all the IT department was in the basement, yeah? So how do you, as a CIO, how do you demonstrate the value and impact that IT brings to organization and performance? How do you manage those expectations with the leadership?
So in the if I use the Australian Ballet as an example, one of the things that I felt was really important was that, and I think it is about having lots of conversations with the leadership teams, the executive groups, showing the value of where technology could go. One of the things that we did as part of the ballet is typically you'll have a business strategy, and out of that business strategy comes a tech strategy. We actually didn't do it that way. We actually built the tech strategy into the business strategy. And so we had 7 pillars. 2 of those were technology driven. So one was about we are savvy users of technology. The second was we are savvy users of data, for example. By embedding them into the business strategy, every conversation we had at a leadership level was driven by those pillars, and 2 of those were technology and data. One of the things that we did was have a stream that ran alongside the business strategy that fed the business strategy ideas from technology. So to give you an example, we had a CRM. We knew things about our customers based on what was in the CRM, but we didn't understand what their web behavior was. So their digital online presence, what were they clicking on? What weren't they clicking on? So one of the concepts that the tech stream brought in was single view of customer, or 360-degree view of customer. We fed that into the business strategy. How do you look at your customers differently? And so, really it was about engaging with the business and showing the importance of where technology could take them. We had a tagline, limitless possibilities. And I think that is about showcasing what technology can do, but then showing how you would deliver something. You can't deliver everything. You cannot deliver, blue sky thinking all the time, but you can show milestones to getting to that blue sky.
And I think that gives also opportunities for, aspiring CIOs out there, or people who want to move to CIO positions, because, as we're progressing, as we already mentioned, every company became tech company. So there's a lot of opportunities for aspiring people to take those roles and to step up into this tech leadership roles in the companies that maybe was not as technical before.
Yep. And I think that's the thing, I'm an interpreter of technology. I don't get, I do like to get my hands dirty, but I listen to what the business wants now and say, okay, yes, there's something out there that could do this, or no, there's not. Maybe we could talk to this vendor, maybe not. I'm that interface between business and technology. So I sit there, I listen to my partners in the business and go, okay, that's what they're after. That's the problem they're trying to achieve. And then I find ways we could do that, right? And then I let my team deliver on the things. We build a roadmap. We understand what needs to be delivered. We have to shuffle that roadmap all the time. But it is, also about building those foundational things in an organization, such as an IT steering committee, where the business has a say on what gets delivered, when it gets delivered. It's been really pivotal to try and keep technology at the forefront of a business.
Yeah, definitely, especially in such a wide range of the industries and organizations.
And I think that's why they hire, that's what is so important about about having technologists, is the business doesn't know what it doesn't know, right? We're looking at ChatGPT and Copilot and all those things, and while it looks great, it's also about understanding what its boundaries are, what it can do, what it can't do, and then applying it to the business. If I was to let my business people necessarily experiment with ChatGPT, our job is to give them guide rails and guardrails to say, don't type this type of data in, use it this way, use it that way. And that's the advantage we have as technologists.
I think that ChatGPT data can go a bit of interesting in the legal and the law organization.
Yep. But, I think one of the things that, especially in my industry, the Chief Justices of the New South Wales Supreme Court have written a paper. They've gone, yes, AI is getting there. Yes, it's probably not as ready as we want it to be in the legal, but they acknowledge that at some point we need to look at this. And I think that's what I'm seeing more and more is companies actually now going, we actually have to look at technology because it's either going to help us reduce costs or it's going to give us competitive advantage. And I think that's the two key things a business really needs to look at. How do we increase our profit? But also, how do we understand what's going to give us competitive advantage? Or for a not-for-profit, how do we encourage more people to come to our mission, align to our mission?
Yeah, I actually know the startup who trying to build the legal advice based on AI.
Yep.
Curious, yeah, I'm curious to see how.
Yeah, look, I'm really
how it's going to evolve. Yeah.
But I think what I've seen in the not-for-profit world is a lot of marketers are now using ChatGPT to write their marketing collateral, right? Because it's quick, it's cost-effective, and it'll get it 80% right, and they do 20% of the work, whereas they were doing 100% of the work before. So that's helped them become lean and become more efficient and get their message out better.
I do the same. So I do the same with my LinkedIn posts. David, I'm just cautious about the time. We're 47 minutes into our conversation. Let's start wrapping things up. I know we can talk for hours as usual, so I love talking with my guests. But let's summarize a little bit everything we talk about today. So if we have, top 3 tips for some aspiring CIOs out there, or, someone who thinking to move to CIO role. So what would be, I don't know, if you need to pick top 3 things, what would be your top 3 tips to the person out there, what they need to be aware of, look out for, maybe skills to concentrate?
Yeah, so I guess for me, the top 3 tips are, and it probably goes back to the other question, make sure you have a mentor, right? And be pragmatic, right? Your mentor, open, honest, and saying, this is where you need to develop, take that advice on, right? Make sure you understand business acumen, right? You need to be able to communicate with the business. My COVID brain isn't great, so I've locked myself in my office for the last couple of days. But really try to, make sure you can actually step yourself into the business. I do that, and the way I've done that at my current job is that I've been an intern in each of the departments for a week at a time. So really make sure that you want to engage with the business and you understand the business. I think the third thing, really tip for me is, keep your leadership skills up to date. I've got a great book called The First 90 Days, and that is all about, if you were to be successful in a leadership role or a executive role, what should you be doing in your first 90 days? And really make sure you keep yourself trained up in those leadership areas. That's probably my top three tips that my COVID brain's allowing me to think about.
I have additional questions to this one. Is there any networking groups or some events would you recommend to people to, like, are you part of any community or anything like that do you think is quite important to be involved?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is, for me, LinkedIn is the key, right? And I love LinkedIn because, again, it keeps me up to date. It gives me great little snippets, serves me up the information I need as soon as I log on. There are some CIO network groups that are part of LinkedIn. I joined, and the networks have been really, really supportive. I can throw out questions and people will answer them. I think it is just building your network, and talk to other CIOs. I approach CIOs on LinkedIn all the time. Have a chat to them, see if they're willing to do that mentorship, see if they're willing to, give you some advice. I think one of the things that I think is really important is that you take advice as well.
Yeah, and be open to the feedback.
Yeah.
David, thank you. So it's an exciting part of our stream today, the giveaway time. It will be really hard for you to choose the winner for the giveaway, but I'll give you some time to choose the winner while I'm doing the announcement for next week. So sure. Next week is the 13th of December. I'm going to run the last session of the year. I decided to keep that session quite short. I'm just going to take some question and answers next week. So it's the end of the year. I'm just going to go live next week and tell a little bit my story, and also would love to hear any questions you guys have for me. And also would love to hear any feedback from you. What do you want to hear from me next year? What sort of topics you would like me to cover on this channel next year? What sort of direction you think I should go with some of the topics? So would love you to join me next week just for casual conversation around IT career in Australia. So that's what we're going to do on the 13th of December to finish up the year. And David, so the time for the giveaway.
So Dylan
is a part of the stream. The giveaway is a virtual coffee chat with our speaker, with David today. So Dylan, so I'll make sure I'll connect you both on LinkedIn after this conversation, and you can organize a virtual catch up, and David can answer your further questions. Perfect. Thank you and congratulations. And David, so to finish today's live stream, and I know you said that you have a bit of a COVID brain fog, but I'm still going to put you on the spot and ask you to to share your favorite inspirational quote with us today.
Oh, that's a good one.
You can think about it, and I'll do another announcement if you want.
No, so I have these amazing cards by a company called Insight. And they're flashcards. So I've got one in front of me. Something amazing is going to happen to me today. That is my inspirational quote for today.
Perfect. I think it's a great one just to put on your fridge or somewhere. And every time, you come to the kitchen and you see it, something amazing going to happen to me today. And just a great reminder to notice those little things around you and those great little amazing things that are actually happening every day. Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Please make sure, as usual, like this video, share it with everyone who need to hear this, subscribe to the channel, all this exciting stuff. It's important, because if you want me to keep having those conversations, I need to know that you're listening. So please support me by liking and subscribing. And I'm looking forward to see you for the last stream of the year next week. David, thank you so much again for joining me tonight. And I'm want to make sure you get in time for your dinner.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'll see you next week.